we can rebuild it so it's bigger, faster, stronger, or at least so it's not broken. Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you can see all my latest videos that are coming out. So today we're going to be making a address holder thing. I don't know what these are called. Whatever, it displays your address at the front of your house. And it's like supposed to look cool or whatever. I don't know, my wife's making me build this. But this is one that she made a couple years ago. And as you can see, didn't hold up. So I'll be making a new one. Trash! No, it's really broke. So to make a new one, I am going to be using this tongue and groove board that I got laying around. I got a lot of it, and I think it'll make a pretty cool design on our, whatever, address thing? I don't know. But if you guys don't have any tongue and groove boards, don't worry, you can keep watching. You can easily make this out of just pallet wood, or even just some thin trim boards. Anything like that would work. Again, this is just what I got laying around. And for everyone that's new to my channel, I don't like going out to the store and buying new wood. I almost always reprocess wood. Making these projects cost next to nothing. But because of that, you can see here that our tongue and groove boards already have a finish on it. Although it's a beautiful yellow pea color, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this so we can start over. So I actually got all this wood from an old UP house that just got remodeled. And I knew the owner that was redoing it, and he went ahead and asked me if I wanted any of this old shiplap. And when I said yes, little did I know he was actually going to throw about 500 square feet of it into my garage. So I have so many different random cuts of this stuff, but I just got it stored away and I'm not gonna let it go to waste. So I just went ahead and took off a thin layer of that stuff on top. And the biggest issue is that groove. I didn't know the best way to get that finish off of that groove. I ended up just sanding it all off, but geez, did it take forever. Maybe I could have made some sort of sanding jig, or even just putting it through my router taper would have been a better idea. Whew, that ain't no joke to get all this done. That's a good beer. Well, we should definitely have enough of this shiplap to make our sign. So we're going to go ahead and start piecing it together. And the best way to do that is starting off with your background, or a backer board, or just something that we're going to use to actually glue these pieces on so that they'll all stay together. Now for this, most people would probably just use plywood, but I got this old piece of paneling that's pretty close to plywood, and it's really thin, and that's what I want because these pieces are already pretty thick, so I want a thin backer that I'm just going to glue them on. It's not really going to hold any structural support, so being thin is perfectly fine. And that way I don't got to run to the store and spend any money on plywood. So obviously this thing's too big, so we're going to go ahead and mark our area out that we want. So since I am using this thicker shiplap wood, I really don't need a thick backboard on here. That's because this stuff is going to be most of the structural strength. This nice thick wood is going to be able to hold it together really well. So this back piece doesn't need to be strong at all. I'm just kind of in need of a surface so that I can actually glue these onto something and then hold them all together. I do realize that you guys maybe don't have access to a lot of the shiplap, and that maybe you guys want to use a pallet wood or something. As you can see, some pallet woods are definitely not as thick as this, but you can definitely use it in this project. I would just definitely recommend a bigger backer, maybe like a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. That way when you glue this pallet wood up against it, it's going to hold it together much better. So even if you don't have access to this, go ahead and grab some pallet wood. You can follow along to the same thing. It's going to look just as cool. Just make sure you get that bigger back, otherwise it might be a little flimsy. That is good. Not sponsored, but if you want to send me some free beer, I'll take it. Alright, so obviously I'm not using this whole piece of pallet. So we're going to mark out just kind of our work area. I'm going to go ahead and make my sign 1 foot by 2 foot. And if you guys got bigger ideas, you can go ahead and make this thing as big as you want. But I don't need this thing taking up my whole porch, so 1 foot by 2 is good enough for me. Okay, here we go. This is going to be our workspace. But also I'm going to draw a line that's going to go down the center of it. That way we're going to know exactly where the middle of our chevron pattern is going to be. Since I have it 1 foot here, I'm going to do every 6 inches. Okay, and then this is the part where we just start building our pattern. I don't really know if there's a best way of doing this. All I know is that you want this corner piece right on your center line that we did now. And then again, as you're putting this together, you want to make sure that this end is going to be past your working area. Otherwise, if you have it coming back here, you're going to have a little triangle where you're missing out on your workspace. Now I'm just kind of testing it out. I know you don't technically have to do this. And also, now that I'm editing this, I realize the whole video I've been saying shiplap. I don't know why, because these are tongue and groove. And I'm sorry I said shiplap instead of tongue and groove.
I know people are going to be mad, but please, it was just a mistake.
Okay, now that we got everything where we want it, all we gotta do is just move it to the side for now, because we're gonna put a bunch of glue on here.
But if you're pretty confident in your work, you can pretty much just glue it up first, and then go ahead and put your pallet wood on, or whatever type of material that you're using. I always just like to double check my work. But since I am using tongue and groove, it's easy enough just to kind of nail it together and then slide it off to the side. And then I can just pick it up and kind of just line it all back up together. And then I'm just doing my best to put it back on that center line. With all that glue there, it should be kind of hard to see, but you should faintly be able to see it. And then you don't technically have to clamp this down. Just when I pushed in this other side, I didn't want that side to move. But it is nice to have some clamps on it. It's just going to give you a better bond from wood to wood.
And then I'm just making sure everything looks nice and tight together. There's no big cracks. And the biggest thing is making sure that all your pieces are inside your workability frame, or that square that you made. So I'm just going to grab some measurements here. I can see the edge right here. Comes out a foot, so right here I'm hitting a foot. I'm going, it goes all the way down. So I'm good right there. I'll go up 2 feet, and I'm good right there. And I can't see that box that I made underneath, so all of this will be inside of that workability frame, or that box, whatever you want to call it. Workability frame is kind of weird. But this is good to me, so I'm going to have to grab myself another beer, and I guess I'll see you when this is dry. Okay, so it's the next day, and as you can see, we got all this glued down. It's nice and solid, glued to our backer here. And now that I'm looking at this, maybe I did have a beer too many last night. Probably would have been a lot easier to cut this backer to my dimensions instead of just gluing it onto a giant board like this. That way with the backer already cut out, all you do is flip it over and then just follow your lines, cutting the excess off. But it's alright, I'm going to make this work.
So nobody's perfect, right? I mean, hopefully you're still watching the video at this point and thinking I'm too much of a goof for making this mistake. I mean, who would have saw this coming? But hopefully from watching this, you can realize not to do the same mistake. But honestly, it wasn't too bad of a fix. I'm just flipping it over and then cutting out the excess. And then I flipped it back around. That way I could kind of see what I was doing. I didn't want to just cut in from the back blindly. And there I have it. I mean, not too difficult. I guess it could have been easier. But after I cut it off, I went ahead and stained it right away. If I didn't hold it up on the screen long enough for you, don't worry, don't rewind. It's called Early American. It's a little bit darker of a stain. I really like this stuff. I use it quite a bit. And although painting and staining isn't all that fun, it is part of the process.
So now as this thing dries, we can actually keep working on it. What we want to do is build a frame around this. We don't want this edge here to be seen. It obviously just doesn't look good. So we're just going to go ahead and build a frame that goes around. I got a couple of these trim pieces, but as you can see, they're a little too thick. I do want them to stick out a little bit, but obviously this is a little bit too much. So what I want to do is just get a measurement of about how tall I want these things. My trim piece is 2 inches thick, and this is 1 inch thick. I'm just going to cut it in half and then rip these down to 1.5 inches.
So if you're wondering what kind of wood I'm using for this frame, this is just trim that you would find at any store. This stuff is actually pretty cheap, but I just have loads of this stuff too. I'm trying to think of a project I can use where I could use a lot of it, because I do honestly have a lot. And yeah, it's from the same guy that gave me all that tongue and groove. So if you guys can think of anything I could use all this trim for, hey, maybe I'll make a video out of your idea.
So now I'm going to go ahead and put this together like any other frame. I always like to put a little bit of glue on it. And then of course I'm just going to grab my nail gun and nail it together. And I'm installing this thing already around our piece. That way I know when I take it off to paint it and I put it back, it's going to fit perfectly. And it still should be a tight fit, but be able to slide off. And here's our frame.
And while that glue's drying, I'm just going to paint it right away. Call me crazy, but I'm going with the black paint. I always hate painting wood, but I think this is going to turn out pretty sweet.
Alright, well, yeah, not getting any paint on me, that was a failure, but we got it painted, so we're just going to let this dry, and then we're on to the next step. Alright guys, so we got our frame all painted, and it should just slide right on, like that. And then all we're going to do is just take our nail gun and then nail it in from the side here. And perfect, would you look at that? So now we gotta actually make our address. Here's a piece of that paneling again. Lucky for me, I got a couple of stencils. My plan was originally just to print something out on the Cricut for some numbers, but stencils work great too.
So this paneling actually comes from my bathroom remodel that I did. All this paneling was junk and I actually got rid of most of it. And as I was working on this project, I actually told my wife I kind of wish we would have kept some more of that paneling because it is coming in handy. Of course, she thought I was crazy, but it is absolutely nuts when you get into building stuff, how you can find some junk and make some really cool stuff out of it. Luckily, I have some stencils where I can just draw out some of these numbers, but honestly, I probably could have freehanded it. And I'm not lucky enough to have a bandsaw. It's on the list, I will get one day. But I did have this scroll saw where I could cut these numbers out pretty darn good. And then I just went ahead and went over to my disc sander and just kind of cleaned it up and made sure those edges were nice and straight and sanded it down right to the line.
Alright, so I got my pieces cut out, and as you can see, they turned out really well. Using that disc sander to kind of really fine tune and make sure that you're really getting on the lines. That way you're getting it cut out a lot better. So, I'm just going to kind of eyeball this, and then I'm just going to use my nail gun again. And here we go. Pretty sweet sign and pretty easy to make. I got all this wood for free, so this didn't cost me anything to make, and yeah, I really think it turned out cool. If you wanted, you could paint your numbers, maybe even put a stain on it, so that way when you're from the road, maybe you could see it a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and hang this up and then go stand by the road to make sure that this is legible. So let's put a backer on this and hang it up.
Okay, so we got it all hung up and it's looking great, even from over on the road. But I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching this video. I know I had a lot of fun making it. And until next time, grab a beer and get building.